Welcome to the Bald and Bonkers Show. Join your hosts Christopher Mole and Dakota Franson as they take you on a wild ride through the world of the supernatural, with a humorous twist that'll have you laughing and shaking in your boots at the same time. From ghosts to aliens to cryptids, no topic is off limits on this show. And the best part? You don't have to be a believer to join in on the fun. So grab a drink, kick back, and tune in every weekend for new episodes. And if you want even more of the Bald and Bonkers experience, be sure to subscribe to our Patreon page for exclusive content you won't find anywhere else. Let's get weird. Oh, and for the whiners out there, viewer discretion is advised. There you go, you entitled pricks.
That one gets you every time, doesn't it? But viewer discretion is advised because this show is probably going to get weird. That's all, folks.
I know. I'm turning into a cartoon. I just can't. I get a reading off Anne before the start of the show, guys, and I'm like, my bed's at the side here, and I'm like, come on, sit and watch with me, and it's get freezing cold right here as I told him to sit down. It's absolutely freezing cold right here. I've said, like, sit down and watch me.
That explains the cartoon start of it. Well, hey. I thought my stutter was bad, man. But today we are joined by Ann Bender. You may have seen her husband on here last week, and certainly plenty of stuff come on. And her husband talked up a very good game, and she is already spooking the hell out of Chris. So, Ann, how the hell are you?
Awesome.
So, for those who don't know you or about your background, can you share about what brought you into this type of thing? How maybe you discovered your abilities?
I was born this way, so I was born scaring the crap out of my parents, my family, and describing people that they knew I had never met. They didn't know what to make of it because it was so detailed and so specific that I knew things that nobody could possibly know. Some of these were family secrets. And so it led to a lot of isolation. I actually, when I was a teenager, they put me in a mental hospital. So I'm certifiable. It was there that I shared my story on haunted hospitals because I figured out that I didn't just see and feel these spirits. I actually interacted with them. These were once people. And I, as a teen, had to figure this out on my own, which is why my passion to help families, especially kids, comes from, because I was so alone and so isolated. So now I understand, I'm always learning, but I understand how I communicate, how that connection is made, and I can use that verbally, non-verbally, any age, to facilitate some healing and some further communication within the family. Going forward nowadays, I also am a health coach, so I get to help the living and use my abilities to tap into all of this to help people live longer. So it's not just about the dead, it's about the living as well.
Can I ask, how do they come to you? I know like a lot of psychics or mediums will see like outlines of the spirits. Do you see them like me sitting here and Dakota sitting next to me? Is that how you see them?
I see them. What I do is I ask them to show me details that help specify whom they are. Sometimes it's a piece of jewelry. Sometimes it's a hat. Sometimes it's a mannerism. Sometimes if it's in person, it might be a smell. It might be a sound. But whatever they can show me to specify who they are to help me, especially if I'm with a communication that's electronic, let me see who you are so I can help communicate your message.
Yeah.
Is that as vague as mud?
Yeah. It's weird because I'm still blown away after the reading you gave me. I really am, ladies and gentlemen, because how you got my grandmother to a tea. I'll do that. You got my grandmother to a tea, and it's fascinating how this all works. Because obviously, like you said, you were in a mental asylum, because in those days they treated. I know a lot of people that's happened to, a lot of mediums, a lot of psychics that has happened to. They said when they were young, they were little boys. One of them in particular said he could see spirits, and his mum and dad put him into a mental institution for years, just because he could see, because a girl would visit him in the night, sit at the end of his bed. You know,
Yeah.
and I think that's terrible. I think that's just diabolical. You know,
People, what they can't see, they are afraid of. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not to fault them, but it is that fight or flight. It is that fear factor. When objects move and you can't see the cause of that movement,
Yeah.
that's where we get called in. And when that happens, it's sometimes as simple, actually many times, as simple as a family member trying to get their attention, going, "I am here. I'm here to help you. I'm here to warn you." In some cases, it's been to warn people of life-threatening physical things,
Yes.
and they're there to get your attention, to help you in the only way they know how.
That's actually quite interesting you talk about that, because your husband that was on last week was telling us about there was a family, and it felt like someone kept touching their face,
Carbon
and you went,
monoxide
and
house.
yeah, and there was a gas leak,
That was a
and there
different
was a
house.
yeah,
There were two different houses. One had a gas leak that the family was going to light the pilot light the next day. Totally different situation. Had they done that, they would have been on the nightly news. We called PG&E on that one and took care of the two gas leaks that we identified. The other one was a carbon monoxide house that, had that mother not been waking her up each night by doing that light cobweb feeling on her face,
yeah.
and she was getting up and she was getting her to open the windows, and that was to save their life. We actually got them out of there with the fire department that night, and it was 3 to 6 months later we got this note just thanking us for saving not only their lives but the young children that were closest to the source. Had they remained even another night without windows open, it was life-threatening levels in that house.
That's amazing. And
That is. No, it certainly is. And people think I talk crazy when I talk about this. One of the first cases I ever dealt where people were saying, "Oh, it's a poltergeist. Oh, it's a poltergeist." The husband ended up getting smacked upside the face with a coffee mug. It only took me about 5 minutes to realize the reason why he took the coffee mug to the face was because he was abusing his wife, who he was also having an affair with, and it was the mother-in-law saying enough is enough.
Yep.
Yeah.
But certainly, the one thing I have noticed, and I know quite a few other people who've seen it too, is ever since the pandemic started, it seemed like there has been a shift where more and more people are starting to realize these things. What's your take on that?
I'll never forget sitting before going into work. I work in the hospital, so the pandemic,
Ooh.
I lived it up close and personal, baby. I remember sitting in the parking lot when everything had first shut down here in California, and the absolute quiet on every level. It wasn't just us, it was on the other side, was deafening. And for me, it was nice, I'll admit, to sit and not to hear the other side for a while and have that break. While I can turn it off, I have to turn it off to not have to just hear the silence. I can't really describe how it is. If you are like me and you listen to the constant noise that you get without turning it off, to hear the silence, it was louder than any spirit screaming in your ear or any banshee.
Yeah. That must be quite interesting working in a hospital with your abilities.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Or
because obviously, yeah.
I've had to bring people back to their bodies so that the family members could say goodbye. There's a few nurses that know what I do. And one day I heard the lady behind me. I knew she'd passed in the ER of a heart attack. And I went, "Oh, you don't know you're dead. And you have a little dementia. Let's get you back to your body so that the daughter can say goodbye." Because I know she's in the room right now crying her eyes out and you're not listening because you're confused. I bring her back, and the nurse goes, "We didn't call you over to do an X-ray, Anne. It's already taken care of." I said, "I know. I'm bringing her back to her body." So she goes, put her back, put her back. I said, "That's what I'm doing."
See, that's
and African American lady, I put her back with the body so the family could say goodbye. And yeah, the nurses, there's a few that know what I do, and the communication I'll have when I ask very specific questions like, "Oh, I didn't realize that you have a family that wore this particular type of kilt, and you just found out about it." And that's when sometimes people will turn around and go, "Oh, I just learned I'm part of the Wallace clan, and da 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 da. You have to meet my wife." I'm like, "Oops, I'm at work right now. My bad."
that's quite an interesting question, actually. I've got for you. You see how you said like the woman with dementia? Is obviously family members turn up for like when it's your time, but how long does it take for when you leave your body with dementia before you regain basically knowledge?
That varies, and that's a reason for us to help a lot of different families when it's a non-family situation. Frequently, it'll either be small children who are lost or elderly
Yes.
with dementia. If they were confused in their late life, sometimes that does carry over. And until they're with their body and with their family to understand what's happening, they don't make that connection to cross over. It's kind of hard to visualize, but sometimes people simply aren't ready. With cases of trauma, it's so sudden, the white light comes for them, but they don't understand and they're too afraid and too shocked. So, like when we went to the Majestic Theater for a conference last year, I helped a young man cross over with the group's help. It was so intense. Every single person present felt the moment he actually crossed over. I asked for a family member to step out of the light. I'm getting goosebumps talking about it because it was one of those moments that to share that feeling with everybody there, that was powerful, and to let them know this is what happens when somebody does cross. Many other mediums recognized that he was there. Very few step forward to actually help them when they're ready. They're not always ready, but to help them to put closure to that. That's what I'm about.
See, I find that very interesting how you talk about that, because I was away visiting my auntie last week, and she's in an old folks home, and her sight's starting to go, and she doesn't keep very well. She's quite bad with her health, and we were sitting talking, and she believes in the afterlife and stuff, and I'm like, "What's it like in here at night?" Because this is a new build, it's only like 10 years old. This old folks home, and she's like, she says, "Do you know? See at night, you can see shadows moving down the hallway, and there's nobody there." And one of the nurses come in, and she was like, "Tell them what happens." And I'll be sitting at my desk at night, the night shift, and I'll see like doors creak open and as if black shadows move. And it makes me wonder because I asked her, I said, she's only been in that room for maybe a year and a half. And I said, the woman that was in it before her died. And it makes me wonder if she had dementia, if she didn't cross, maybe that's what the shadows are. Maybe that's old people that's still trapped in that building because they were afraid to get into the light.
That very well could be, and that's not uncommon. People are afraid of dark shadows. They think they're demonic when in fact it's just the absence of light. Spirits can present in white shadows, colored shadows like the Woodland Opera House. They can be dark shadows. A demonic entity is something totally different with never living. It is a whole different feeling to it that is very nauseating and sickening, and I won't go much into that. That's not what we handle. I refer those cases out as they're not safe for our family. I have a young daughter, and we don't handle those.
I go to a lot of locations round about Scotland, and I don't know if I've got guides with me. I think my friend, my housemate Robert, as I call him, comes with me. And there's been situations where I've seen something. I've seen something. I thought to myself, "Oh, look at that! That looks really interesting. I should go down there." But then there's something at the back of my mind like, "Don't go in there. Don't leave it.
Bingo.
Go round about and just go to the other side. You'll see something nice there, but don't go in there, and I've got update, and I thought, nah. And I think it's them telling me there's danger in there, plus there's something else lurking in the darkness.
Yep. And those tricksters, yeah. Listen to your gut. This is a profession that is not treated serious enough. There's certain tragedies throughout our profession that have happened because people don't respect.
Yes.
And that's very unfortunate.
It's in the ghost hunting community, especially a lot of the bigger YouTubers that deliberately try and piss off the spirits. I don't like that. I don't like the way they treat them. The first thing they do is they burst into the house and start spouting off language to them. It makes you wonder, because some of the spirits, the nice spirits, will just be sitting there, maybe watching the TV with the and these people will burst in and start like shouting and screaming a little bit. What's going on here? What's going on?
Yeah, you treat people just like you treat spirits, how you'd want to be treated. How would you treat your family? May I speak with you? Will you show yourself for the camera? And that's why I've gotten so many apparitions. I've asked them in my head, please show yourself. I'd like to show other people that you're here. Will you? And sometimes they'll say no, and that's fine. I respect that no. But other ones will show themselves. No flash. Don't use a flash. You'll burn out their presence. But use a tripod or somewhere to hold the still, and you want to take at least several pictures in a row, because sometimes they're moving so fast you may just get that blur, white blur, dark blur, colored blur, and sometimes in the middle, from that orb to mist to apparition and back again, you'll catch the whole series. And that's what happened at Woodland Opera House. People brush that off to this day, but I saw it with my eyes. The people on either side of me saw nothing. Nobody was there. This was at noon, wasn't at night. And there she is. She was a Catholic schoolgirl who had graduated there. To this day, I don't know why she stays in the Woodland Opera House, other than perhaps Mr. Porter, our firefighter, who also resides there. He's actually shown up in a green light interacting with my dowsing rods on video.
I don't know if my co-host Dakota's looked, but I'm actually on your website now, and I've got it up on my phone because that's to ask you questions, you see. And I'm actually looking at the opera house right now, and you can see that she's got like a blue top on.
Yep.
And is that a black scarf?
Yep.
And you can see her hand.
And her
you
shoes.
can see her head.
And her glasses. He's turning her head. We tried to reproduce it. Our debunkers work with us as sensitives. We use every tool in the shed. We've tried to reproduce this picture. It is not possible to reproduce it.
That's amazing. See, I thought she was going in this direction, but now look at it. She's actually coming in this direction towards the seats. No, back the way. That's weird. That's so amazing.
I asked her to show herself. She did. And she's always shown herself as a blue orb in that same shade of her shirt every time I've been there, in every picture at the Woodland Opera House. So I always talk to her and Mr. Porter, who was there. He was the first fireman in California who perished in a fire at the Woodland Opera House. And he protects it to this day.
Guys, if you're listening to this in the podcast, the links will be in the chat, but the links will also be below the live tonight, the video. You need to check these photos out. I mean, this is...
They are.
I like the ones that are like a thermal image. It's like you can see the cold spots, the hot spots, but you can see she's walking. It's just she's walking out. That's just that gives me kind of goosebumps. That does, doesn't it? That does give me kind of goosebumps. That, you know. And then there's the orb in the stage. That's
within milliseconds. She went from the ceiling as an orb to mist to the apparition to back up the other direction as an orb again within seconds.
See, I always find that fascinating, how spirits can turn themselves for like human form into like, obviously their energy, into like a little ball. Is that how they travel? Is that how they travel about, as like a little ball?
It's the easiest form of energy to travel, and there's also a dimensional factor. I won't get too much into that because I'll lose most of your audience. But if you touch on UFOs and that whole connection, There's the
No.
same wavelength, and I think the best description as far as
Mm-hmm.
the UFOs and dimensional is what the professors are doing in Utah. I would love that frequency they're using, that dimensional frequency, and how they're communicating. While there's a particular danger to it, I've run into it here in town on an investigation as well, and have heard it and interacted with them. So
Well,
it is
actually,
reproducible, that signal.
well,
Oh, yeah.
Dakota's your man. Dakota's the man because he does the UFO stuff. He does a lot of UFO stuff and frequency stuff.
I have cases where I'm working with them now who are dealing with it in their own right, and it's a very challenging situation. We're still trying to figure out ways to help because it's simply out of kind of like a demonic situation where it's out of our control, it's out of our power. This same thing. They are so advanced and they operate on that particular frequency, but there's no stopping them. Their intelligence is so far beyond ours, we can't even fathom where they're at.
I see you've been to a location that's on my bucket list, and I think it's one of the most haunted places in the world, is Alcatraz.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
I have an apparition from there as well. My mother-in-law actually told me to take that picture.
I was about to say, what, your mother-in-law was in Alcatraz? Whoa.
No, but she had family that was incarcerated there, I'm sure. No, she came with my husband and I on a visit. In front of the warden's house, where there's no land below, was an apparition standing, because there used to be ground there, of a soldier in a very heavy wool attire, hat. He's there 1 second, he's gone the next. You can see that he certainly is there. But again, where he's standing, there is no ground below. But when he lived, there was ground there. He's still walking the same plane in that time. So it was not an interactive apparition. It was just a ripple in time. One of those situations like at Myrtle's Plantation. It just is a loop. It happens over and over. We happened to be there at that moment it was happening. And he's standing right above, because below is where all the prisoners were kept originally in the old portion of the dungeons. That's an intense place.
I'm looking at a photo of the new, and I don't know, I'm just attracted to it off it, and it's like a set of stairs with a white wall, and there's like a chain at the bottom of the. I'll show it really quickly, if that's okay. That one there.
Oh.
Right, and I just don't know. There's like, I don't know. I'm drawn to it. I don't know why I'm drawn to it.
That would be something where in between the apparition and the orb, you have a mist like where it just kind of drags like that.
Yeah.
So on either end of that, if you ask them to please stop, show yourself, will be when you can get that apparition image. There's on the website, there's a lady, I normally discount mirrors, but this one, it wasn't until 5 years after the investigation. And I had described the lady's mother. The lady living was there in a red shirt. She's very hard to discern in the picture. The lady in black, there were no pictures of her. She was the stern mother I had described. She shows up clear as a bell in the mirror.
Yeah.
She did not like me describing her at all.
Mm-hmm.
The energy that's in that prison is intense. I mean, obviously, I watched the film that escaped from Alcatraz, and it makes you wonder: did those men actually make it? Do you think they made it, those men, or do you think they were maybe drowned in the sea?
The men that escaped Alcatraz, you mean the ones that actually escaped?
Yes.
The two brothers did. They made it.
Yeah, they made it.
They made it. They got to freedom. In fact, they've actually shown proof of it. The family knows about them for having survived. We may be doing an investigation on Angel Island with a different project. I haven't got details yet from it, but there's another project to help prove the paranormal. So if that comes to be, that'll be interesting to see how that manifests. If that's the case, we'll be overnight on this island that's, not inhabited. So we'll see what happens with that. I think it'll be very interesting.
Certainly.
Yeah.
Now I was gonna say with Alcatraz, that's something I have a bit of experience with, mostly because I had a 12-hour layover in San Francisco, and obviously as we came in, we got a view of Alcatraz. I swear I could have seen inmates in the yard, guards walking the walls, and I'm just like, why the fuck can't I get a good camera on this shit? No, it's something I want to.
The same thing happened to me in Michigan, at the fort up in Mackinac, where you could actually hear the cannons going off. You could hear the screams, the echoes. There's a couple places in Michigan where I'm from, and those are real life thing, places you can go to. The other one is in down in Cary, Mississippi, in Vicksburg. It's far more active to me than Gettysburg, where you could see the soldiers. And I didn't have a camera with me to get a picture, but I knew that they were soldiers from the South, and I could see the uniforms in detail, and their echoes in time, still walking those grounds. That's a different phenomenon than an intelligent haunting. You know, we don't understand it all. And anybody that says they do is full of it. They're making it up because we really just don't understand.
It's just going back really quickly to Alcatraz. Did you ever come across any spirits that thought they were still in jail?
Unfortunately, there's a couple places I did not like going into because they were still held in there. It's something where until they're ready to cross over, they're not going to change, and that's free will. They're allowed to stay stuck as long as they feel that they're deserving to be there.
See, I always find that interesting. It's like my house guest Robert. I mean, he's obviously crossed and then he's come back again, right? But a lot of people tell me that you have to you can go back to the spirit world and then you can choose to come back. It's weird that so can you basically stay on this plane existence forever if you want?
I wouldn't be able to see them in their plane if they weren't able to come back and see me in mine. It goes both ways. That's why a medium walks in both worlds, literally. And I have to be careful how much time I spend walking in that world. And some people become very physically ill, because they're not turning it off. They're not taking care of themselves. That's where my health coaching comes in, learning how to ground, how to take care of you as the living.
I think I need to do that.
I can show you how to ground.
You could show them all you want. Getting them to actually listen and follow through is the problem.
It's getting me to do it. It's getting me to do it because I do a lot of the stuff with the quote with the alien stuff and all that, and it is overpowering. It is overpowering. And there's times where I imagine myself as like a tree, and the roots going into the ground, and I try and ground myself and stuff. And I've got crystals there. And sometimes
what crystals do you have?
Oh my god! I've got a big shelf. I've got loads of them. Black ones.
Too many.
Ones.
You have too much quartz in there, hon.
That'll do it.
Too much quartz. No, that's not a grounding stone. No, hematite is going to help you ground, but it has to be the right one for that purpose.
Right.
So if you stand with the stone, holding it away from your abdomen at your belly button level, feet shoulder width apart, close your eyes. You're going to pull that stone to your navel. You will feel yourself pull backwards or forwards. If it's forwards, that stone is what you need to use. It's for the right intent. Hematite is fantastic for learning how to feel the weight of grounding. And it's a heaviness that's good. It brings you back to earth. Shungite is another one to block the EMF. It physically does block the EMF, and it helps quiet things down. My husband wears it all the time as necklaces, as bracelets. Takes care of his headaches.
I'll need to get a big one. I'll maybe do that. I'll maybe go online after and see if I can find some, because it does get a wee bit too much sometimes. It does.
I put it by the bed so you can sleep better.
Yeah.
Shungite has an 8-foot working radius, depending on the stone size. So if you find actual shungite, it must be from Russia. but it has about an 8-foot working radius. Fantastic stone to give yourself a break.
Figures the Russians would have it.
Why it's so expensive right now.
I will admit, as I look over there, I can see a lot of like quartz stuff.
Get rid of it in another room. Don't get rid of it, but don't place it all together. Quartz enhances stuff. It's a megaphone, and too much in one spot is overwhelming.
It's just.
Why do you think the Stanley Hotel is so active, man? It's built of quartz, man.
Yeah,
it's built on quartz.
Built on quartz, made of quartz. Oh, so jealous when my family went there and didn't take me. It's like
I'll break it up tomorrow.
Been to the Stanley. Been there. Yep.
Oh,
incredible location. We actually have video of Todd Sheets that was with us, where a spirit was grabbing his hindy. There's another situation on the USS Hornet where one was grabbing my hindy. The sailors do get frisky, I found out. And of course, Waverly, my husband spoke about the death tunnel. We spent time in there. But inside, just coming up to it, I was the one. They sent me out of the car to open the creaky gates in the pouring rain. And I see Waverly in the distance and going, what the hell am I doing? I get back in the car going, I've got 2 days of this with the Taps family, and what have I done? What have I gotten into? They stole an earring from me. It's to this day in there. I had to go by myself in there to go get it. They kept it. I can tell you during sunrise by yourself, even scarier. As far as that intense heaviness and feeling watched, and by yourself walking through there is off the chart. Do not provoke them there. They will throw you. We watched somebody get thrown 5 to 6 feet in front of us because she provoked the spirits there.
I find it funny after you mention getting rid of the quartz. Chris's signal's also depleting.
Yep. The Tina, who took me into the X-ray maze at Waverly Hills, because I tend to sometimes walk where things used to be and not where they are, I ended up walking right into the walls. She goes, well, the X-ray maze used to go that way. It doesn't anymore. So I've known to, I'm actually why nobody travels alone in places, because I'll walk off steep embankments into walls, walking
Been there, done that.
The Waverly Hills one, I mean, that's just going to be, wow.
I love Waverly.
That place is, like, the deaths that's been in there, that must be intense. And there must be some amount of spirits that are trapped there.
There very much are, from kids to all ages, but they're also, some of the Waverly spirits are trapped at Mammoth Caves. We were also there, and many people don't realize, back when they were trying to figure out TB, they took many of the sick to the Mammoth Caves because it was wet and damp. And as you know, nowadays, that's the absolute worst thing to do with somebody who's sick with TB. So many of the Waverly patients perished at Mammoth Caves and are still there as well.
God. The energy that must be there. I mean, Dakota, when are you arranging a trip with Bald and Bonkers to go to the Waverly Hills Sanatorium?
When are you going to help pay for the tickets?
That's already, you're already in the United States. I'm in Scotland, bloody up the hills and stuff.
But it wouldn't be Bald and Bonkers without us both.
I know. I mean, especially tie you up and leave you in a room for the spirits to come in and experience you,
Yeah.
Which
that opens up way too many things. You know my history.
I know. But here's an interesting question for Anne. What advice can you give to young people in today's generation dealing with maybe spirit boards and stuff like that?
Don't play it. I know they advertise it as a toy, but please, it's not. It really does act as a tool. For those that know how to use it, it's a tool. But it's definitely not a toy. And if you do not open and close that portal that you are opening with those boards correctly, you can invite accidental, horrible things, and not mean to, not intend to, but you will. And I can't tell you how many, especially young college kids, we have had to go in and help out. after they use the Ouija board and we're drinking and having parties. It's not a toy. It's just not.
See, I know people can get attachments, and that could ruin the rest of their life.
Yes.
I mean, I know
Oh,
people.
yeah.
I know people that have done it, and I've told them you should not have done that. And I've met people. I've walked. There's a beautiful 12th century graveyard just down the road from me, and I've walked through there and I've found kids playing Ouija board in there, and they don't think, because it's not just that. There's got a lot of like graves in there, mostly children from like the 13th, 14th century, and it makes you wonder what darker spirits are like wandering outside the garden for someone to open the door.
It's just dangerous. My husband believes strongly in not investigating graveyards. That we actually find more spirit activity at theaters and in public events and things like that.
Mhm.
Theaters tend to be your most active. Castles that put on performances, anything that put on a performance with a crowd, because many spirits that decide to hang out, they enjoy the audience, and they like Piper's Opera House in Virginia City. Mrs. Piper is still there, and there are other people who accommodate her. The neat thing is the actresses that of the past that used to go there or used to go to Woodland Opera House as well do frequent more than one theater. So you don't have to go to that theater to find that particular spirit.
See, I've always found that interesting, because you'll get like spirits that'll turn up at theatres when there's plays on. So when the living are there watching the play, there'll be spirits there too, watching the play.
Mm-hmm.
And that's quite interesting, that, because it makes you wonder, that does the empty seat next to you have somebody sitting in it?
Oh, I can feel it. There's been days that Dave and I have been in the theater, and you just close your eyes and you can feel the crowd behind you. And even Dave can. You don't have to be a medium to be able to feel that energy.
Yeah.
It's no different than when you're going into a house for the first time that you may not know. How does it feel when you walk in with the lights on? Turn the lights off? Does the room feel differently? If it feels full, you are walking into a room with a presence.
Yeah.
If it feels the same, nobody is there.
It's weird you say that, because I went into a church one day and it was missing the roof. It was an abandoned church, and outside it was fine. It was quiet, and it was a Sunday, but it was in the afternoon. And I walked in and I felt like there was full of people. I had that weird vibe, and I felt like I just walked in when they were doing a sermon or something. That's what I felt.
Mm-hmm.
And they were all like sitting looking at, what is this? Who is this? What's that strange thing he's got in his hand? What's that? Is that a camera? What's this guy doing? And that's what I felt like, and I just turned around and come straight back out again.
A lot of times when we're bringing technology into investigations, that they aren't going to understand what that technology is. There'll be a curiosity or a fear factor on their part. People also assume everything happens in English. I do sessions in Spanish. I've caught EVPs in French. A little French nurse was singing a song to an infant one day, and I recognized the French song. So there's two things. One, be careful of that equipment. While it is a great tool, it also can scare off what you're trying to accomplish.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is to keep an open mind. Every nationality, every religious background, and the simplicity of how they thought back then is so different than how we think now. All these factors we have to take into consideration to be respectful.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
So, I know that you just mentioned that the UFO topic, because of how complex it gets, and believe me, I understand. I can tell you some stories. It's something that you don't try to focus on, but more often than not, now I've dealt with this myself. Have you ever gone into a situation where the being present, they weren't necessarily dead, but they said they came from alternate realities?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
We had both a situation a very complex, conflictive situation, and two very conflictive religious beliefs, where I had a witch that had passed along with a witch from a different absolute polar opposite. I had that situation going on. In another room, I have a portal that is right out of Salt Lake, down to the electric sounds and distortion of time, space, dimensional issues. Never saw that one coming. Plus, I had a haunted object to complicate things that we had to depart. Not one, but two, actually. It was really very multifactorial, but the couple was so distraught they were looking at separating, and they were already separated at that point. And probably about 2 weeks out, they said, from actually calling it off, with a child involved, a young 2-year-old who I was communicating with through thought. And I'll ask him to bring me your favorite color. He came and brought me not one orange, but a whole handful of oranges, and bring me your favorite toy. And I'm doing this in my head. Usually these children don't react to strangers, or they're very scared of strangers because it's too much information for them. It's overwhelming. So I do a lot in thought ahead of time. Part of what was going on is these spirits that were there that were scaring him, and scaring him badly, wetting the bed, just terrifying him. The parents were in conflict because of what the other spirits were doing, because one didn't like the other family. And it was a hot mess. So in one night's time, we were able to calm the little one. He was able to stand up to the spirit, scaring him afterwards. We were able to let the family know what was going on so that they didn't keep influencing their emotions the way they were. I didn't share the metallic part, so if they ever listen to this, they'll probably call me up and go, "What are you talking about in that other room?" Because they still live there. And that's a whole other issue. So I don't want to go into too much detail.
Understandable.
But it's a factor. It doesn't affect them in real time now. Am I aware of it? Yeah. Yeah. I'd love to see them sell the house and get something different, but that's their choice. Unfortunately, I'd hate somebody else to be in that situation and have to deal with that problem, because it's still going to be there. There's something about that particular location that they've locked in on. So you just can't assume, and you can't go, one doesn't exist if you say other things can exist. You really have to be honest, keep an open mind. Is it often that happens? No, it's very uncommon. Just like dealing with demonic entities. I have met one face to face. I will not say its name, as that's what caused me to get launched across the room, as my husband's so scared.
White brim hat?
No, he shapeshifted. He shapeshifted, and when I first, he did have a white brim hat at one point, but when I first saw him, it was an elderly man with a very old cane with white flowing locks and long gray hair. And then he shifted.
I'm getting goosebumps when you talk about that.
Yeah.
Very, very old. I do know its name. It's not recorded much in history, but it was here before Mexico was California. It predates everything. It is one of the OGs.
I said his name once when with a group Chris and I used to be with, and needless to say, things got nasty. People had to be hospitalized.
Yeah, don't say their name.
But and I still have the video of this incident because it took place all on a live just like this. There's also was an interesting point where one individual did get compromised, was possessed. But whenever someone would say my name specifically, it flinched. Like I gave it PTSD somehow. So that ended up being the opening to start breaking off the situation.
Yeah. It makes you wonder why they're here. I mean, if you believe the Bible to the T, obviously it's the ruining souls, the ruining man. But do you think they're here? Why do you think they're here, evil entities? Why do you think it's obviously you can't have good for evil, but you have the evil for good kind of thing? Do you think there's got to be like a balance?
You don't have one without the other.
Right.
Well, my religious preference is Methodist by birth. I
Yeah.
also embrace my husband's Native American background, and
Mhm.
I've reached a personal balance that's for me only.
Yeah.
I have great respect for all religions
Yes.
equally. What matters is when somebody has a religious choice that they believe in it, and that is theirs regardless of what it is, and that they honor whatever it is that protocols it is when dealing with spirits. um it's a very touchy subject for many people.
Mhm.
We don't judge, and if they're an atheist and that's their choice, we don't judge. We're going to go in and use what tools we have to help them deal with the situation, because we're only there for a tiny minute in time. Our job is to give them whatever tools we can, and our knowledge in that background, in that religion. Sometimes we have to call in an expert in that religion.
Yeah.
We might have to reach out to the Catholic priests if it's something that is of demonic nature and turn it over to them. They're the best suited for demonic situations. There are also particular professionals in the field who can handle it, and I'm not saying they went online and found out how to do it. Not to
Yeah.
say that somebody can't learn that way, but there's way too many people that
Oh,
call
yeah.
themselves priests that simply went about it that way and
Yeah.
have no real life experience and mentorship
Yeah.
by another. And that's the key component, is that
Yeah.
mentorship quality.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll say myself, I've been in situations now. Mind you, I'm a bigger guy. I'm 6'7", somewhere north of 300 pounds. Every time I get on a scale, it airs out, so I'm not 100% sure. There was a case that got pretty nasty pretty quick. The person believed that they may have had something tailing him, and the more we got into it, he ended up being right. I'm gonna avoid saying the thing's name.
Thank you.
It ended up going into full-on exorcism, but before the thing got completed, the thing bailed. It
Mm.
attacked me in my own bedroom, picked me up by the throat, pinned me against the wall, and started trying to choke me to death. It had no... Like I said, I'm a big guy. This thing did not struggle to lift me up.
Do you understand why it did that?
Mm-hmm.
To let you know how powerless you were against it.
It tried to catch me off guard, but I was
Yep.
able to fight back. Next thing I know, there was a bright flash of white light, and the next day my neighbor came out asking me what happened because she swore she heard a slaughterhouse coming from my house. And our houses were like 3 feet apart. Even her dogs were nervous to come around me.
You have an angel. That was Archangel Michael that stepped in on your defense for that one. Straight up.
Yeah.
Now, I want to add on the topic of angels, for people that embrace them, be very cautious. You need to be as respectful and careful with them as you do demons. They are as
Yes.
powerful as demons, and they can inhabit you. And since they were never human as well, they can kill
I've heard
without
about that.
meaning to.
Oh, yeah.
I've
So
heard. I've heard about this.
please, guys, don't think, oh, it's an angel, I'm gonna... No, just as dangerous. Both of these entities were never human. Please respect that power and that
Yeah.
fact that they were not real. They were not human real. They are their own thing.
No.
They're their own dimension. They're their own, no different than an alien that operates off of its own higher level of education and
Yeah.
Did
Well,
somebody just speak there?
yeah, I've been hearing voices on and off this entire time. But
Agreeing
in the
with? Was
case,
somebody agreeing?
with the case of Michael, there's quite a few sources, and we have a friend of ours Craig Campobasso, he's casting director in Hollywood, but he's well known within MUFON. He has Extraterrestrial Species Almanac. In fact, I'm going to try to get it out, but I can't see what I'm reaching for. He actually lists angels as a known ET race. And
Yep.
some of the MUFON investigators that stepped up because they realized there's a lot of weird situations in my line fully believe that Michael, in a way, may actually be an ancestor of mine. To which it goes even further that there's actually archaeological records that trace back some of my family members who are part of the British royal family who are believed to be descendant of Sumerian gods. So, like I said, there's a whole big mix and a lot of weird stuff that
you have Sumerian ancestry in you. I don't know that you have actual familiar relations. However, the Sumerians have a connection with Michael, and that's why Michael came to mind immediately. But you do have Sumerian ancestral in you, and that's why you get along so well with Christopher. There's an interesting connection between you as well. From the time of Stonehenge.
Well, this has got... Well, we've always speculated there may be a relation between us, but we never found it.
You are connected from Stonehenge era. Active, live, real-time Stonehenge era. Not the original, because there's different stages of Stonehenge. The later stage, where the giant pillars were created and made. That's your connection.
Is that... See, I've always known I've had a connection with Dakota. And obviously because we're otherworldly. What else do you see connection-wise with me and Dakota?
I'm getting some neat visuals of Stonehenge, particular in how they moved the rock. I've always wondered about how, and I'm actually getting some flashes on how they did it, which is very similar to how rock was moved in two different places of the world. In the south of Peru, and there's a place there, and then there's also another one in, and I'm terrible with names, but they moved some heavy rock in, not Thailand, but it's
Egypt.
No,
not Egypt.
Angkor Wat, Cambodia.
Angkor Wat, that's what I'm thinking of. Those two items, the stones were moved in the same way, same as Easter Island as well. The same thing happened there, and it's the same. That while these are different races, it is a similar race. There is a connection. They are, and I've gone way off the deep end. I've lost a lot of your viewers.
No. We live up to Bald and Bonkers.
We dabble a lot. We dabble a lot in the UFOs and aliens. Trust us.
I've seen several in my life. I have actually talked to one, and I have some interesting theories. So
I have 3 kids with one, so
you know what? It between certain situations that I've crossed paths with, that's why I'm so drawn to Salt Lake. While there's a huge danger factor there, because that particular race that's there is incredibly dangerous and harmful.
That is the weirdest thing ever. Do you know that? You talk about seeing things and then it happening. I was watching a thing today. It was a live camera, and I watched it for about half an hour, and it was Salt Lake City, and the mountains were in the distance, and I was looking out, and I had a weird. I don't know. There was just something weird about it.
It's that frequency they use, and while I won't disclose that I know what it is, it's also the frequency I use when I'm doing. I do remote viewing to help officers find physical details with cases. I've actually used it to find missing persons in real time, within a 5-minute time to exact place in in Canada, in Vancouver, Canada, where it was able to locate a missing person. I'm here in California. That's the frequency I use when I tune into those kind of details where I'm actually looking through somebody's eyes. I learned about this when I started seeing serial killers kill real time, and I was seeing their victims' eyes. That's the book I'm trying to write that doesn't sound too crazy, but shares what I do. It's all frequency based.
Yes.
I can tell you that's how I do it. I can't tell you how I do it, but I know that there is a frequency I use specifically for it. That's how I'm able to see through your gut. I can see your house.
There's a frequency I use to go into my meditation and my astral traveling. Yes.
Be careful when you astral travel. Make sure you still have some foot firmly planted where you are. Don't go all the way.
Oh, I've been quite far. I've been away places.
You can be away places, but keep part of you there.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense?
There's some interesting places that, like the Akashic Records, for instance. That's an interesting place.
You can go anywhere. Just like that's how spirits travel. When they have gone, it's a fantastic, dimensional, and instantaneous. They can go anywhere. That's how they cross over and go back.
This is a question I was thinking about for kind of around about the end of the show kind of thing. For people that's watching this that are afraid of dying, right? What is the journey when it starts? What actually happens, right? Say I lived to 120, hopefully. I'm in my bed one night and I close my eyes. What happens for there in a pass? What happens?
If there's a fear, there's probably something undone, something they haven't finished, something unfinished.
Yeah.
That's where that fear comes from. When all of those tasks are done, then they're going to be relaxed and open to the next stage, the next transition. They aren't going to be gone forever. A family member, you guys can still talk to those loved ones that have passed. They will hear you. Sometimes they're not going to show themselves because it's too soon, and they know that you haven't moved on yet. You haven't let go. And because they know you need to let go to continue with your life, they aren't going to present themselves, but I can tell you they are looking after you. And I'm not being sacrilege. Look at all the spirits that are talked about in the Bible. It is a part of our life. Einstein was correct. Energy can never be created or destroyed. We simply transition into something different. God bless Einstein. And that's what I use when I'm dowsing and using a visual reference.
It's amazing, isn't it? I'm not afraid of dying. I'm not afraid of dying. I know that's what will happen. Obviously, and you hear a lot of people that say, "Oh, don't go into the light. That's a trick. It's a trick." What do you say to people for that? Say that
it's not a trap. It's that person's fear speaking.
What kind of crackhead is saying don't go into the light? I understand. If you're on the living side and you're watching a family member pass and you're just not ready to accept that they're going,
there's actually people out there, and this was actually 2 years ago, and it was Coast to Coast AM, and they had this guy on. I'm not going to say his name. He's wrote a book and all that about it. I'll tell you after the show. And he's convinced that if you go into the light, you're instantly reborn again on Earth. It's like it's a never-ending loop, right?
It'll seem
but if
instant,
you don't, but if you don't, you get to travel to the afterlife, and I think that's about.
Okay, Marianne, just don't go to the light if that's what you want.
That was a great film. The first one was a great film with the wee woman,
Fantastic.
Yeah. So Dakota, anything else you would like to ask?
Well, just one last little question. You see this mostly in UFO abduction groups, but that there's actually a certain blood type that may be more psychically inclined. You fall in that group?
I know what you're talking about, and I don't know that it's so much a blood type as it is a genetic type. There are particular genetic predispositions to folks they go after. I have a client, I have seen it on x-ray that when they do the little implants in the feet, and actually had to dance around that when I started asking the patient about it because she'd never had surgery, and she had one of those implants. So there's a definite type, but I wouldn't say, don't limit it to blood type. It's a genetic type. And it has to do with their original genetic splicing and the fact I feel they had a hand in who we are today. They continue to help us evolve. Those of us that are psychic and mediums are the next evolution from that. I think everybody to some extent has that ability. But it's a genetic factor beyond what our science has quite been able to pick out.
Well, when you really think about it, the type of experimentation that would satisfy the scientific method as it is, that would be go against a lot of ethical backgrounds. So,
oh good God, yeah. I mean, you look at the abductions and what happens to some people, what they can remember happens, because obviously you people that don't remember the horrific things that did happen to them.
Yeah.
And it's something that's always amazed me. You get the people get abducted and they have horrific experiences, but then you get people abducted and they have really nice experiences. And it must be really weird, because obviously they do something.
Unfortunately, people forget that there's different aliens, different
Oh yeah,
species out
oh, yeah,
there.
definitely. Yeah.
Oh, we
Just
know.
like, look how
Oh, yeah.
diverse our own planet is. Come on.
Exactly.
And
There's millions
some
of different
species
races
are
out there.
going to be ethical and operate off of a sense of compassion, and other ones don't know what compassion is. They would be like a demon who has never lived and doesn't understand it, and we're nothing more than a lab rat to try to figure it out.
Yeah. It's
wheezing?
there's a strange word. It's mind-boggling.
You're hearing
What
it too,
happens?
huh?
Who's
It's-
yeah, you have somebody wheezing. It's okay, it's you. It's Dakota.
Yeah.
Your background, you have somebody in that doorway who is really wheezing. It's not a family member either. Don't mean to scare you.
Nah, it's like the only wheezing I hear is my cats. It's like,
There is somebody that you see behind them now and again, because I've seen them moving
It's
about.
gone now. It's gone now.
Aye.
Yeah. But I heard
yeah, it's like,
I
shit,
heard a
they
wheezing,
saw
and
me.
it was a male wheezing.
Yeah.
Go back
Well,
on the audio, you'll hear it. And there may be
I've
some
been,
EVPs buried in that as well. Enhance it up.
yeah,
It
it
was like
doesn't
somebody
take
with a bad
much around
cold.
us. Or they smoked a lot based on, well, previous owners of the house. I do know that apparently they were hoarders and they had to do some serious cleaning, and we're still finding little bits of stuff that got broken in the yard and just didn't get noticed. But I don't know. It's like, I'm not fully sure on the history of this house, but I do know that the previous one did put in a ramp because the ambulance got called in so many times and she wasn't very mobile. So
There it is again. Yeah, you go back and listen to it. You got some
Yeah.
audio stuff in the background, Dakota.
I heard that too.
never fails.
I heard that.
Never fails.
Well, I would like to thank you, Anne, for coming on the show. It's been absolutely fantastic. And I would also like to thank you for the wee reading that you gave us at the start of the show before, obviously, the live. Dakota, would you like to?
No, thank you for coming on. We got to get you back again sometime. This was definitely interesting. An hour isn't enough.
Aw. You're
we'll
both
get you back.
a gem. I enjoy you both, and thank you for the visual you gave me of Stonehenge and how the stones were moved. I've always wondered that, but
Like, I
neat.
do find it funny you did mention South America, because my mom, she actually just did a DNA test just because of how this family situation was. There's a lot of gaps in our knowledge about who all we're related to. We actually just found out that apparently we were related to Mummy Juanita. And for those who don't know who that is, that was a 14, 15-year-old girl that was found who was believed to have been part of a human sacrifice during the Inca Empire. Apparently, there's certain DNA markers that we have, and to where she's technically a relation. And why that she's such a fascinating subject is because she's one of the most well preserved because of where she was found. So I didn't expect to see that. I knew about like Germany, Scotland, all that. I didn't expect South America to come up in those.
See, that's quite interesting. That
has to do with your Sumerian background, my friend. It's all the same. That's where it crossed the lines.
There's a certain abduction situation where I may have met Enki himself. So that's something we're already exploring.
Keep going. You're on the right path.
Yeah. We'll definitely need to get you back again one night and make it a special show one night. Maybe get a couple of other people on too. And I think you don't know what strange things could happen, don't you know?
Definitely run some recorders in both of your studios while it's going on, and I'd love to hear that breathing that's going on from her. Yeah, she's got an oxygen tank and the whole deal, but she's wheezing pretty good. That's why the ambulances were always there for her.
Well, the main reason I know about the ambulances is because my mom, she actually is a 911 dispatcher, so she already had a pretty good history of the house before we moved in.
All right, and you just right before that, go back and listen. You have 3 syllables that were said from her.
I thought she was still alive.
No. No.
I'll have to look into it. Now I'm curious.
No, she actually just spoke. You actually have an actual EVP beyond what the wheezing was.
And she'd maybe help her cross the quota if is she across already, or she wouldn't really have an oxygen tank if she had been crossed. Would she?
I'm not.
Hopefully not.
She's curious. She hasn't crossed over, and she doesn't know how. And Dakota, you can actually help her on. If you want some help afterwards on how to help them, it's a pretty simple and straightforward thing to do. It's just scary to do your first time. You want to hydrate well and rest up well.
I know. It's not going to be my first rodeo. I've dealt with possessed objects, and ironically, the first ever haunted doll that ever came my way, the spirit that was attached was a 30-year-old woman named Dakota. So that was a little awkward.
Hello.
Well,
she's just as curious. The fact that as you are, and boy, you have a lot more abilities you've not tapped into, my friend. You're not listening enough.
That's actually we have our friend Elena Denon. She's one of our favorites. We're real big into UFOs. She's actually the reason why I found out about the Sumerian connection was from one of her latest books. She's been helping me on and off because not only do I have this body connected on Earth, apparently we actually found a paper trail that proves that I was an officer with the Galactic Federation that helped with rescuing abducted children. We know this because I've actually found one of the kids we saved. And even she said that because there's that direct connection to Enki, I can pretty much tap into just about every psychic ability that we know of. And then some.
And then some.
It's like, so my assumptions when I was first noticed my abilities about potentially turning into an X-Men are slowly becoming true.
Well, you get your one-piece suit there, Dakota, they can just jump in there,
When you disappear, we'll know where you went.
Yeah.
Oh, they keep bringing me back.
They would come for me first. I don't like it.
No, I actually have a sleep recording app that I run at night sometimes, and I've caught their voices about who comes to get me on tape.
Yeah.
Very metallic-ish, but in a different language that doesn't exist on this planet. Yeah. I have recordings of that from that investigation. Same things from. That's why I keep referencing Salt Lake, and Utah, and I say Salt Lake, but it's just that area. It's not Salt Lake in particular. But there's something about Utah, though, that particular land and that area facilitates a need for. There's an energy source that they're actually harvesting there. That they can.
There's certain bases that come out of there because there's been a few times where I've had UFO sightings and the craft were coming out of Utah, so that doesn't surprise me one bit.
And the other place is Antarctica, where they actually habitate. So Antarctica and so in the Utah area. The first sighting I had was driving from Montana to towards Utah on that path around 4 a.m, and I watched it fly through the air and stop and zip off a different direction 90 degrees from that at a non plane object ability. I went, oh, so that's how they get around.
I find it quite interesting about how you're talking about Stonehenge because my father's side is from like England, obviously, and my mother's side's from Scotland. But I do know that I think it was my great grandfather was French. I think there's like a European connection there.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
Now I'm going to be obsessively thinking about this all night.
Yes, thinking of the big stones. You know, well, honestly, thank you so much, Anne, for coming on. And everybody, the links will be below the video after this is uploaded. And honestly, guys, thank you very much for coming tonight. Thank you, Anne. And we'll catch you all soon.
All right. See y'all later. Stay weird.
Thanks for tuning into the Bald and Bonkers Show. If you enjoyed the show and want to show your support, head over to our website at baldandbonkers.net. There, you'll find our merch, services, and more. Thanks for being part of the Bald and Bonkers family, and we'll see you on the next episode. And remember, always keep an open mind and an